what's up? Another episode of Don't Shit on the Bus. This one was supposed to be a Q&A episode, which is when, the patrons and people on the internet ask questions and we answer them. And you know what? It was. But I got a guest host. I got the amazing, my good friend, Drew. And Drew is somebody I toured with about 10-ish years ago, but he's done so much since then. He started out as a merch guy, became a tour manager, did some production coordinating. Eventually, now he is a manager. But when he was tour managing, he was working for Imagine Dragons. He's worked for Grouplove, some other artists as well. You'll hear his whole story during this episode because I started off and I was like, hey, Drew, let's just tell everybody a quick story about how you got to where you are today so we can kind of qualify you and they understand like, hey, listen to these guys' answers because he's done these legitimate things. However, we just kind of got carried away and lost in the conversation, and I'm not mad about it because it was fun. It was good. I learned a lot. He's got very, very good takes on how to approach this career, and he's very well articulated. And I attribute that to, helping him with his success because he's done so well. This is somebody I toured with on the same level 10 years ago, and now he's more than, surpassed me and is very, very accomplished. So it was quite an honor to have him on the show. I hope you enjoy what he had to say. This week, we have a few new patrons, so let's welcome them to the show and thank you for their support. We've got Alfonso, Brittany, and Rebecca. So thank you guys for signing up. That contribution on a weekly basis really helps pay for our editing, pay for our gear. It just helps the podcast do what it does. So thank you. And in addition to that, as soon as you sign up, you put your address in there. I'll send you a little welcome package. It has some bag tags, some stickers, just some good stuff. And it's worth it. And it doesn't matter how much you're paying. We'll send you that package anywhere in the world. So stay signed up because we definitely go in debt right off the bat. But with that being said, enjoy this week's episode with Drew. He's an amazing dude. There's a lot to learn from him. And I'll see you next week on the next episode of Don't Shit on the Bus. All right. Have a good one and bye-bye. Drew, welcome to Don't Shit on the Bus. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, dude.
Thanks for joining me. I feel like it's been a while. I mean, we talked like a few months ago, but we just talked about triathlons and life. We haven't talked about work together in a long time.
I know that I actually watched, and I never texted you afterwards, but I watched those YouTube breathing technique videos that were fascinating.
Wim Hof?
Yeah.
Isn't he wild?
Wild.
He's crazy. I need to get back on that.
Really cool. No, I know. I need to. I never was on it, but I want to get in it.
Yeah, you do it once, and you just meditate afterwards or something. Like, oh, this is like euphoric. It feels cool. It's kind of, I don't know. I don't achieve that on a daily basis. Maybe you do. You run and swim and bike very far distances, which I imagine afterwards feels really good.
But you know what? One thing that I've realized in so many circumstances in life, not even talking about like athletic realm, you don't think about how little you're breathing, or you know what I mean? Sometimes if you get worked up or you're on a call or you're doing anything, like you're not taking as many breaths as your body probably needs. And like, there's nothing better than just taking a deep breath.
I just took one as you were talking. I feel better already.
It's important, dude.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
As I get older, I slowly realize how everything I was told when I was younger comes true, but I didn't understand it until like I actually understood it. And this just take a deep breath. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And I'm like, oh, I know what that means. But anyway, you're here because, well, at least I think you have had such organic and not typical, but a type of path that a lot of people find themselves doing in the music industry. And I was hoping we could kind of talk about how you got to where you are today and what you've done that kind of qualifies you to be here. And hopefully people who are listening can understand like, hey, this is something you could do. This is a path that you could take. And yeah, lead by example. So when did you start touring and why? Why did you want to go on the road?
So my first tour was before I was working for any bands. My old band would do these like regional VFW church hall basement shows.
Oh yeah, love those.
Go, from Philly, make our way out to like Michigan and back, and then like upstate New York, do shows in Ohio, some in Virginia. I don't know how far south we got. We never made it to the West Coast, but what I always say to people is I was the least talented person in the band, but I was the most responsible. So I ended up learning all these things without knowing that I was learning them because I was like on MySpace, like trading shows. Cause I went to Penn State University. And so I would be like, hey, Former Thieves. That was a band that was also signed to No Sleep Records. Like, you guys are from Des Moines and I see that you have a tour and you probably need a Pennsylvania show. I'll give you a Pennsylvania show if you can help me with this promoter that I see is doing your show in Ohio. And so like that, this like whole network of people I met in doing, and so I didn't realize that I was like meeting people and networking and doing those things, but that was my first tours. I was playing guitar, but I didn't start doing it professionally until 2011.
That's a cool come about. When you said you were the least talented person, I was going to assume you played bass, but that's just because I feel like it's always the easiest. And also maybe that shows how little I know about playing bass. But
it depends on the band. But yeah, so that was kind of my first experience. And then when I was in college, I interned at a music venue called the State Theater at State College, Pennsylvania. And then I interned at No Sleep Records, and I interned for Bear Trap PR. And I was like in this music club that we had money to book shows in our student union hall. So we had like Polar Bear Club and Defeater, and we had
nice.
We had 4 Year Strong, like booked all these kind of like alternative punk bands that we were into that was outside of like the main show that the campus do would be like Snoop Dogg or something. You know what I mean? So we were like the
LMFAO, something like that. Yeah.
Passionate or whatever. So I like, was super involved in music from, age 16 through graduating college.
That's amazing. I love hearing about when colleges actually, not when they actually, but I love when colleges set people up for opportunities and success like that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they generally have like pretty good budgets to work with. So it's not like unattainable to get said artists to perform.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had $10,000 a semester, and we were like the alternative music club. So like at the time, for like, oh, hey, Polar Bear Club, we can pay you like $2,000 to come play a show. They're like, holy crap, like, that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, let's go.
Yeah. So we got to, book like all of our favorite bands and throw them in like these huge concert halls that like 500 kids would show up to. But it was a really cool experience.
And you're like, hey, we have a meet and greet ahead of time. There's only 5 people. They're all in this club. So you have to do it. My
old band was called I Am Alaska. And then I would like, get everyone to vote because it was, like a club, but I would always get our band to open up on these shows that we would book.
I'm looking up I Am Alaska. I don't know if I knew you were in that band.
Yeah, I wasn't an original member, but I was in the second incarnation of that band.
Oh, that's cool. I was trying to look up album covers to like bring back memories. That's awesome. So you went from being a musician or working at school to kind of finding your way into touring. But when did you start actually going on the road and working for other artists? Was that the next step, or is there a few more things that happened?
Yeah. So when I was getting ready to graduate, I knew that I wanted to continue working in music, but I never had any ambition to like be a touring person. It was never something that I even considered. So I was supposed to intern at Red Light Management in New York City for this guy named Anthony Patterson, who's still like homie, mentor, just someone I like and respect and look up to. And I went up, did this interview, and he was like, man, we don't really have anything. If you want to take a train from Philly to New York like twice a week, I'll have you like get coffee for the office and shred paper. I was like, I'll do anything. Just like, let me hang out. And 3 days later, he called me and said, hey, I know that you said something about you were in this punk rock band that toured. OAR has this environmental awareness program, and they need someone to go out on tour and set up recycling stations and coordinate, this green initiative with all the venues that they're playing. And this is the same time that like Dave Matthews Band, Jack Johnson, all these bands in that genre had like really prominent green initiatives out on the road. So I was like, yeah, that sounds freaking amazing. And like, I didn't know much about OAR, but I like looked them up and I was like, oh, this is going to be like in a bus in amphitheaters. This is wild. So that was like my first proper tour. And that was the most eye-opening, life-changing thing that could have happened to me straight out of school.
Because you got to see how it was done and what most would argue like the most professional or one of the, it's not arena or stadium, but it's really high up there. It's way bigger than most tours that exist at all. And it's probably, definitely bigger than what you were doing with your own band. And you're seeing like all these jobs on the road. How eye-opening was that for you?
It was crazy. And so we were probably like 2 or 3 weeks into the tour, and the tour manager's name was Chris Reitzman, who's, again, still someone I'm like super close with. Every time he's in Nashville, we hang out. I said to him, I'm like, hey man, I really like being out here. What else can I do? Like, how can I help? Like, I'm not asking for any more money, just like tap me in. So by the end of the summer, I was like helping the merch guy do pulls. I was ordering after show food for the production assistant. I was helping the audio guys pin the stage. I was asking to sit in the production office as much as they would allow me to without being annoying. Because everyone on that tour at the time was probably like over 35 to 50, and I was 22. And so they called me, my nickname was the Green Dreamer because their environmental awareness program was called OAR's Green Dream. So I was the Green Dreamer, like over radio and all that stuff. But oh no, I was like, I'm going to work so freaking hard that no matter what, they're going to ask me to go back out with them in the fall because the next leg of the tour. But it went from like amphitheaters to like theaters and clubs. So they kind of scaled it back. And they were like, hey, man, you did such a good job this summer. We love you. But yeah, there's no room. There's no job for you. And I was just like, fuck, I was crushed. So I went back home with my college degree and I was working at Pizzeria Uno. And my next tour was a full US tour with a punk rock band called Such Gold. We were opening up for Hit the Lights. We went from like, I was in like 4 or 5 bus tour with trucks and catering and per diem to we were touring in a miniature school bus, towing a U-Haul trailer. And so I like went from like polar ends of the spectrum. And with Such Gold, I was like the tour manager. I was doing merch. I helped set up their backline. I drove. I did all the like, you know, all the accounting, all the money stuff. Yeah, it was wild. My parents were like, what are you doing with your life? And I was like,
learning.
I was like, I'm trying to do this.
You went from like a full-time internship for everybody with OAR. You're like, I'm going to make an internship out of everything, to doing all the jobs you just learned on a much smaller scale, but still doing it. I bet that was, you know, it takes the right type of person to say yes. A lot of people will be like, hell no, I'm just doing one thing. Or, you know, maybe they wouldn't have taken the train to New York every week. So, I mean, it's all your fault. You did it.
Well, so that Such Gold tour ended, and I went back to Pizzeria Uno, Hatfield, Pennsylvania, shout out. And so this is like the full circle moment. OAR's day-to-day manager, the guy that got me out on that tour, he called me, and I was working a shift on Valentine's Day, which that is a particularly busy day at Pizzeria Uno.
Oh, wow.
So he called me and I was like, oh shit, like it's AP, I got to pick up. And he's like, hey, you're about to get a phone call. There's this band called Young the Giant and they need a merch guy in Denver in like 48 hours. And I was like, oh, shit, like this is crazy. So my phone rings and this manager named Drew Simmons calls me. He's like, hey man. And I was like, all right, well, I just walked out on like, I had 5 tables or whatever. And my manager assumed that I was outside in the parking lot because someone in my family had died or something. Like, because like, why else would you just walk out of the restaurant? And he was like, have you done merch before? And I was like, yeah, dude, I know everything about merch. I'm the best merch guy ever. I had never really done merch except for like moving boxes around for OAR over the summer and like, you know, doing some pulls. And he's like, all right, cool. Can you be in Denver in 48 hours? I was like, I'm there. And so I walked back in and I said, my manager's like, dude, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I got to quit, man. He's like, what? I was like, I'm going on tour. And he's like, well, you're fired before you can quit. And I was like, that's fine.
Yeah, how's that? What's that even matter? Is that just like an ego thing? You're fired before you can quit? What is that?
I don't know. I mean, I feel bad that I walked down the tables. Hindsight 2020, it was probably the right move. But I flew to Denver and they sold out the Ogden Theater, which I'm sure you've been there.
Oh yeah, love the Ogden.
It's like it's 1,500 capacity. And so they had all this merch already there. They were planning on doing the tour without a merch guy, and the TM was going to like check it in with local sellers.
Oh yeah.
And I was like taping the shirts to the wall. I had no idea. And I think after that first show, I was missing like $1,500.
Which is first of all, taping the shirts to the wall for if you haven't toured is not how you put up shirts, is what you're trying to convey for people who are listening. Yeah. Okay.
Was not the best display that I had ever done. So the tour manager, who's again, someone that's still super close to me, like actually one of my best friends, this guy, Stu Burke, he calls the manager, was like, yo, I don't think this guy's ever done merch before, but he's like hustling, like he's trying really hard.
Yeah.
So I was 2 weeks in and the band guys were like, I don't like, we should probably fire this guy because he sucks at merch, but he like really wants to kill it. He like really, really wants to kill it. Like
and people want to help people. Like that's true on tour. Like you see somebody doing what you're doing. Nobody's like, you got to go home. They're like, because they can teach you the rest. They can't teach you how to be fucking eager like that.
So like every show I would have to check in because, you know, you settle with the venue every night. Yeah. And the person that was checking me in would be like, they would come up to me like, dude, okay, you need to do this differently. You need to do this differently. So in like a month into the tour, I like kind of had a grasp. I had like ordered grids and I had like printed out price tags and I had my boxes to vend out of properly. And I was like, okay, I think I'm getting this together. And so, yeah, that was like my first real merch tour. But that all came full circle from the OAR thing.
That's great. What a cool way to get on tour. And also, so they didn't send you home.
They didn't send me home. And then on that tour, Grouplove was our opener for the first half, who I later went on to work for years and tour manage and do shows like all over the world with. And then the second half of the tour, Walk the Moon was our opener, and I was the production coordinator on their Shut Up and Dance tour. So
you just jumped around.
It literally like is crazy because at the time, in a million years, you're like watching this opening band, you're like, I'm never going to work for these guys, but every band that opens will one day headline.
Or we hope so, at least.
Yeah. So like I've done tours where there's crew people that just treat the openers like shit. And I'm like, yeah, you have no idea. Like this could be the next Dua Lipa.
Yeah. And even if they aren't, why are you treating people like shit? It's terrible.
Exactly. Yeah, man. So I'm super thankful for those. Like those are like my first 3 tours and they were so great.
And, you know, your floor where you started is some people's like what they're going for. You know, they're working years to get there, and that's okay. You know, everybody's got a different journey, a different path. And if you don't start out touring with, you know, 3 massive bands, it's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. You know, you didn't really start with that either, in my opinion. I mean, I know you started touring with that, but you started working towards that a long time before it. But that's great that it paid off and you did everything right. And I like that you maintain friendships with all these people, because, you know, I don't know if I can say the same for myself in the way I navigated my career, and don't know if I attribute it to my anxiety or my inability to like connect with people because I'm working and not really doing FaceTime with them. But, you know, after hearing you say that, I really thought to myself, like, maybe I need to do a better job, like just talking to people on the road and connecting with them. Because I have friends like you, but, you know, I don't have, you know, people that are maybe I do, but sometimes they're mostly in bands. They're not as crew people. I think it's just who I have to work with on the road. But I thought that was really interesting about your story, is that you're friends with everybody you met still, or a lot of these people.
Well, I think you're like, you know, you spend an obscene amount of time with them in a confined space. And even like you, I mean, when we caught up a couple months ago, it had probably been a year or 2, maybe more since we had spoken, but there's kind of this like, you know, brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever, that's always there because like you're part of this community. And touring is awesome, but there's also like a huge like shitty component to it as well. So like just been in the trenches, you know, with somebody, like I'll run into somebody that I did a tour with and it's like, man, I haven't talked to you in like 3 years, but I still feel like you're my boy. Like
you've gone through some traumatic experiences, whether it be sleepless nights or, you know, a disaster of a show, or just living on the road in general is a pretty rough thing, or can be. I mean, of course it's easier as you get on buses, or harder in other ways, but you know, everybody's done those tours that just rock them.
Yeah. It's funny too. Like every time that I think about you, or anytime that we speak, I always will remember that day in Santa Fe, New Mexico, when we went whitewater rafting. Truly,
oh yeah,
one of the most fun days off I've ever had on tour. And that's just like a memory that's always going to be with me.
Yeah, that was really fun, man. Yeah, I remember that day because I think I went to Chick-fil-A too. It was like across the highway. That was such a, I wonder who set that up. It's so nice when you tour with somebody, because we didn't set that up. Like a tour manager coordinated that.
Oh, for sure.
And it's so nice when you tour with somebody like that.
I remember we like packed all those snacks for the rafts or whatever. And Ricky, who was another guy on tour with Pierce the Veil, I was like, hey, can you pass me one of the water bottles? And he like threw it to me, and it was in a Gatorade bottle. And I just like went to take a huge sip, and it was like all vodka or something. And I was like, dude, we're like baking in the sun all day. What are you doing? And he was like,
Ricky's crazy.
He is crazy. A lot of love for that guy, but he's nuts. And I just remember like having such a ridiculous time, and then going to that Mexican restaurant after that was so bomb. And
man, I love hearing your memories of things that, like, I like hearing your memories of things with me that stick out, because they're different than my memories of what sticks out with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to hear those things, because I don't know, you like relearn your past. It's cool.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Oh man, I got to dig up some of those photos. That was a fun trip. Good off day. Thank you, bands.
Yeah. I mean, some of those tours with Pierce the Veil were like, I mean, the hardest I've ever worked doing merch for that band.
And they're what in the industry people call like a big merch band. So you can kind of break this down, but correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but when an artist sells at a show, after the show, they'll kind of say, hey, we did this amount of money per head. Mm-hmm. And that means, you know, for every person that came to the show, they made that much money. And some bands, you know, they'll do like $5, or they'll, you know, for every 4 people that come, they'll sell a shirt. For some bands, for every person that comes, they sell at least a t-shirt. And so if you have 1,500 kids at a show, you're selling 1,500 t-shirts in 3 hours or 5 hours, or whatever. It's a lot.
Yeah. And the other thing too is always in a condensed amount of time, because you figure like if the doors are open at 6 and the first band's on at 7, you're going to be super busy for that.
Oh yeah.
And then everyone's like glued to the show. So they have your opener, and then your headliner. And then after Pierce the Veil, or whoever the headliner is, it's just an hour and a half of absolute madness. And you have like all these kids like throwing sweaty money at you. And they're so excited because they just saw their favorite band. They're like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're just on Dude, they're just on the best moment ever.
It's wild. And once it's all done, then you're like, you have all this money that's like crumbled up and sweaty. You have to count it. And you have to count all the merch. And you have to pay the venue. And you got to pack it all up, put it in the back of the trailer, take your display down, and then, try to get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep and do it all again the next day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. Yeah, you did it. And then, okay, wait. Let me just walk everybody through this. You toured, you did Green Initiative, then you went and more or less and did mostly merch. Mm-hmm. And then you gradually started doing tour managing and production managing. Is that what you said?
Yeah, not so much production managing, but...
Okay, I misspoke.
Yeah, I kind of went from doing merch, and then I would work for bands where I'd be the merch guy and the production assistant. And then...
Production assistant, okay.
From there, like production coordinating. So like where you're working for a band that the tour manager is really just focused on the artist party. And the production coordinator would be doing all the travel for like the crew and dealing with like a lot of backstage logistics, where the tour manager would be more centric on the artist. And then from there, I really started full-time tour managing in like 2015 or 16 and not doing any other jobs.
Yeah, because, well, we'll get to the questions here in a sec. Like this is going to be a lot of questions, but one of them I wanted to build in was somebody wanted to know how you made the jump from merch to TM. And I hope after hearing them kind of talk through this, it's not so much a jump as it is like a constant push. And it wasn't like, I would say you jumped when you went from Pizza Place to touring. That was definitely a jump. But, it was so fluid. And when you went to mostly TMing, I know like the job that was kind of your biggest job is TMing Imagine Dragons. Was that who you started in 2017?
No. So my first, I had like a little tour manager experiences, like when I was still doing production assistant stuff for OAR. Their TM would have to miss a show or two, and I would just be the obvious guy. He would like help advance it with me, and then I'd go out and be the boots on the ground. I tour managed KT Tunstall for a tour, but like the first real band that I cut my teeth with properly was Grouplove.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember we played a festival with you once. So I was like, oh, Drew's here.
Yeah.
With the Grouplove. It was in Michigan.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember that. Like it was like some rock radio festival.
Yeah.
It was like The Offspring and Rise Against played, and A Day to Remember, Grouplove, Portugal the Man.
Yeah, dude. So that was a fun show.
I remember that show vividly, yeah. But the funny thing is, though, and again, back to just like not knowing where relationships are going to lead you. So somewhere back in the early days, I'd said that Grouplove was our opener on Young the Giant, and I went and was doing merch for Grouplove. And we did this radio tour in 2012, and we were the opening band on every end of the year radio show.
All the Rex the Hall stuff.
Yeah, like Rock Santa's Balls Off 2014 or whatever, like Jingle Ball.
Yeah, I know what you mean. All the radio, you play 5 to 10 minute sets, and then your stage rotates and somebody else comes out.
Yeah, K-Rock Almost Used to Christmas, like all that stuff. So we did that whole circuit. And so we would be the opener, and then right after us would be Imagine Dragons. Or Imagine Dragons would be the opener, and they'd be right after us. And we would be on the same Southwest flights.
Oh, sick.
From show to show to show. And so I wouldn't say I got to know those guys, but 6 months later, we were in the UK opening up for them, and they were doing like these massive shows. Saw them again. They were like, hey, what's up? This is crazy. Met their tour manager, Angie, who's still a friend, reconnected with Mac, their manager. And then flash forward like 4 years from that, I was in Italy with Charlie Puth, tour managing him at this award show in like Verona. I think that's where we were. Ran into them again, and they were like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're here with Charlie. Like, this is crazy. You're still touring. You're a tour manager now. You're not a merch guy. It's amazing. And it was in that connection that Angie had left to do Guns N' Roses, and they had brought in a couple different people that just personality, for whatever reason, didn't work.
Wasn't working.
And so that's when I had interviewed the first time. They told me, they're like, hey, we really like you, but you don't have enough international arena touring experience. And I said, well, I don't have any international arena touring experience, but
I can only get better. You guys, look how good I am. I could only get better.
You guys could give me a shot.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, like, we think you're great, but not the time. So I was still doing Charlie Puth, and he had fired me. And so I was pretty crushed because I'd never been fired before. And I went and did merch again for the war on drugs in Europe. And then Mac called me, Imagine Dragons manager, and said, hey, I know that we said no last time, but this other guy that we hired didn't work out, and I think they should just give you a shot.
You're like, yes.
I flew from Amsterdam to Las Vegas to interview with them again. This time was in person, and got the job.
Hell yeah.
Let me just tell you that there is not a level of being absolutely terrified higher than I was when I got the job.
Respect for you for doing it. And also, I want to hear a little bit more about that. But I just want to say that a part you kind of glossed over is how well you handled getting shot down. Because I know these people came back to you. I know that when they told you no, you weren't like, fuck you, man. You were just like, oh, okay, like, I'm really sad, but I want to do this. And you kept working towards it because, like, some people legitimately rage and they never get hired.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because the thing was, is like, you know, I knew even if I never got the job, I'd probably run into them again. I mean, at that point, we had run into each other like 3 or 4 different times on different tours, completely unrelated from one another. And it's a small industry too. So it was just like,
Yeah.
and as a band that I had a ton of respect for. So it was like, I respect your decision that you want to go with someone more experienced. And ultimately, when they did call me back, I mean, that changed my life. And I'm super thankful that they gave me the opportunity. And I literally, I mean, dude, I did whatever, no pun intended, whatever it took, whatever it takes, you know.
That's not an easy tour managing job. You're working a lot.
So I think when they offered me the job, they sent over the dates immediately because the first tour was in Asia and I couldn't even get visas for all the shows because it was so close to it. That's how, so their day-to-day manager went out and did most of the Asian tour and I was doing it remotely. It sent me 140 shows that were coming up the following calendar year from, you know, Moscow and Moscow and Kiev were stadium shows to headlining Lollapalooza in South America to 40 US headline shows to 3 different European tours. I mean, dude, it was like every single day I'd wake up and I would stop working when it was time to go to sleep I just like whatever it took. And like, there was a lot of things that I didn't know.
How many emails a day?
600-700 more. I don't know.
Oh my God. Connor's shaking his head so hard right now. He's like,
I think the hardest thing was like managing the time zones, you know, because it was like,
yeah.
I remember that year, the sequence of touring was Asia, UK, South America, Europe again, North America, Europe again, North America. So wherever you were, you're out and you're doing this tour that you had advanced like 2 or 3 months prior, but then like whatever you were going to next was in a different time zone. So there was no like,
and you had to be being on their schedule.
Yeah, it's like day off, 10 p.m. I'm going to go to bed. Nope, Asia's waking up. Like, let's go.
Hey, you did it. Were you like a heavy coffee drinker? Was there anything that you had, like, or did you stay healthy? Like, what got you through that? Or did it all kind of go to shit?
A lot of coffee. Our production manager and production coordinator used to make fun of me because in my bottom drawer of my work case, I had this whole like nerdy AeroPress coffee setup where I'd hand grind, you know, because that was like the one thing that I was like, okay, if I'm going to be out here, I'm going to drink good coffee.
Hey, respect that. You got to enjoy the few things you are able to enjoy. It's not like you can go spend 3 hours doing anything else.
Yeah. But I think in working so hard and, you know, in those tours going, you know, I say as humbly, they went well. The thing that didn't go great was my health. And like looking back on it and if I were still touring, there's a lot of things I would do different now that I have the experience and just know how something like that needs to operate. But yeah, I mean, I didn't take myself into consideration often.
You didn't have time?
No. Yeah. I think I was like 50 pounds heavier than I am right now when that tour ended.
Wow, that's a lot. I didn't notice. I saw you at like, I don't know, some San Diego Del Mar beach show.
Oh, Kaboo Fest. I remember.
Yeah. You look good. So
we flew to New York the next morning. I remember that because we had a show the next day. Our crew flew overnight and then we flew at like 9 a.m. the next day right into the show.
Oh, wow. That's sick. Oh, yeah. Because 9 a.m., then you add 3 and then you add 5.
Yep.
It's already time for show. Well, honestly, that's great to hear your whole journey. And I'm glad that, you know, there's actually more to your journey because now you're not touring, you're a manager, right?
Right. So the last part of kind of like my touring experience was when Imagine Dragons were really winding down. I think we did like 25 or 30 shows in 2019, all as one-offs though. So while I wasn't gone quite as much, it was probably as much work because every individual one show, it's like, hey, we're going to do this festival in Quebec City. It's like as much work as setting up an entire tour because you're flying everyone in, flying everyone out. You're like,
that's a good festival.
Oh, Festival Diete is amazing, dude.
I haven't been to that one, but I've been to Quebec City, and I just want to say that place is amazing.
It's beautiful.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were kind of winding down, and my friend Emily, who was our VIP coordinator on Imagine Dragons, texted me one day and said, hey, do you know any tour managers that have done like, you know, some bigger type shows that are looking to work for a country act? And I was like, we're kind of winding down and they're about to write an album. I'd be curious to see who it was. And so it turns out the band was Florida Georgia Line. And they were looking for someone to be their day-to-day manager and their TM because in the country world, you only do like 50 or 60 shows a year. So I was like,
weekend warriors, right? They just do every weekend.
Yeah, they go out like Wednesday and they're home Sunday, or they go out Thursday and they're home Monday.
Yeah.
Rewind, actually, when in October of 2018, Imagine Dragons manager asked me to help do day-to-day for a producer he managed because I told him at that point that I was starting to think about how I could get off the road. felt like I wasn't doing it in a healthy way. And I know that there's people that do it in a healthy way. And I'm not saying that that the way I was doing it is how everyone does it. But I was just in a place where I felt like I was kind of lost personally because I had just been gone my entire 20s.
Hey, I can relate, man.
Yeah. So I started helping him manage this producer named JT Daly, who I am a super fan of because I love this old band Paper Route, and I just love the stuff he does. But so Florida Georgia Line and Big Loud decided to kind of just go their own ways and end their relationship. And so when that happened, that was kind of this pivotal place because Big Loud, to me, it offered me this opportunity to have more than just a TM role. And so that is when they were like, hey, we want you to stay with us full time and get off the road. Yeah. So that was in February of 2020.
It's a good time to get off the road.
Bro, I mean,
there's not a lot going on the road.
Timing was insane.
So I have some questions that came from Discord, which is like the people that kind of pay to support the podcast. We really appreciate them.
Yeah.
But we get some questions from them. So I figured I'll run through them and we can kind of talk about our thoughts and our answers. No right or wrong. Let's just talk it out. But I thought a good one to start with, especially because of all these things you just told us. Actually, I have this thought in my head. I really just want to say thank you for sharing that whole story. I feel like I grazed over that you just spent 40 minutes telling your whole thing. And thank you for doing that. That was, I don't know. I enjoyed that. Great pal.
I appreciate it. And I apologize if it was long-winded. It's just, I don't.
No, not long-winded. I'm here to learn. All right. First question I've got for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is from, I'm going to say this name wrong, but it's Airberto on Instagram. And they said, I'm great with remembering faces, horrible with names. Do you have any tips for that? I feel like you must be a good name person. I'm
actually not the best name person. And this is going to sound super corny, but it's all about alliteration for me.
Okay, let's hear it.
So like, I'm trying to think of one, but if I meet somebody and I'm like, okay, I need to remember this person's name, I'll think.
Airberto. You met Airberto.
Is it Airberto with an A?
H-H-E-R-I-B-E-R-T-O.
I would say hello, Alberto, because like the HH. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like.
I gave you a hard name, I think.
Yeah.
Well, if I met Drew, I would say, damn, Drew. And I would just look at you every time and I would think, damn, Drew.
The other thing too is like sometimes you email so many different people that like your search function in your inbox is. I wish everyone had like a little picture in their email signature. That would be freaking amazing.
Hey, we should start that.
Yeah.
Or maybe like there's got to be like an add-on where you can automatically like have your inbox sort who's emailing you and then attach a profile picture that they like scour the internet for this person. So it like, do you know what I mean? It's like, hey, finds their Instagram, pulls their image, puts it on their email footer for you, but it's just like native to your computer. It's not sent out. That'd be a good invention.
Yep, I'm into it.
Yeah, names for me, actually don't have any advice because I'm very bad with names as well. But I'll write stuff down if I absolutely need to remember somebody. Or like in my contacts on my phone, I'll write down my experience with that person. Sometimes that helps me, just the act of doing that helps me recall their names.
Totally. Yeah, I do a lot of contact cards with like FGL's merch guy or this person that works at Twitter, like adding the company. Cause then I'm like, you just search the company name and then you're like, oh yeah, it's that person.
Or like we went to dinner in Vegas and I don't know, like I'll write stuff like that too, so that I can, next time I see them, I'll be like, oh yeah, I did this with them. Like, cause it's so weird to think about, but when you tour, when you live in this world, you do so many things that a normal lifestyle would be able to remember all the fun things if you did them like once a week. But because you do them 5 times a day, at least more than that, it's just, you can't retain it all. So forget things like Drew said, we went on this rafting trip. I didn't remember that until now. Like, it's just not in my, I mean, I remember it, I recall it, but I don't remember it like every day. And it's just wild. The
best thing is the searchability of your photos in iPhoto now, where you can just type in Atlanta or January 2017. And it's crazy because you're just like, oh yeah, there's like all these photos from this one time.
Oh, that helps. That's great. Yeah, geotagging's so nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Next question. So this is from, I'm going to say your name wrong, but it's Nikol. Let's go with Nicole. Nicole. Yeah, Nicole. Okay. Wow. I could say that. On Instagram, how do you know who the right person is for a job? And what are some deal breakers? So, I mean, you've been in a lot of different positions on the road. If you've interviewed somebody or you found somebody, is there anything that sticks out there? Like, this person can absolutely not do this job. What goes through your mind?
I think the biggest thing for me is like, if we're talking about me doing the hiring or me applying for a job, you just want to work with people that are going to be a good representation of the artist. Because so many, I mean, 9 out of 10 times the artist is never going to talk to stagehands or the promoter, or, like your people are the ones that are doing all the interfacing on your behalf. And if the people that you work with, if it's your management or if it's your road crew or if it's your agent, if they're not good people, like that makes you look bad. It makes the artist look bad. So I always just try to, every conversation I have, pretend like my employer is like sitting right next to me, and I'm, conducting business on their behalf accordingly.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, you're an extension of their brand almost.
Totally.
So if somebody shows up and does that boil down to even how people present themselves in a visual way? Like, does everything matter in the touring world, or is it more just personality wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be you want someone that's gonna be a team player and someone that's like willing to adapt. And it's inevitable that something's gonna not work out the way we had planned. Like a flight's gonna get canceled, or catering's gonna be cold or not there, and it's just like, I didn't want to be around people that were going to complain in those situations, because there's just too many moving parts for everything to always go perfectly.
Yes.
And I think we both have been on tours, and probably on tours together, where there's just like a few people that can really kill the vibe. So just being flexible and having a good attitude is everything.
Man, I love that you say that, because I know stuff goes wrong on tour, but I never actually vocalized in a way like, hey, stuff is going to go wrong, and that is just part of touring. And you're right. If you have one person who's like, this sucks, and they just start bumming out, it's contagious, and it travels through the tour, and the whole tour can really lose its fun. And if you're always being optimistic, and like maybe to a fault even, it really helps you get through those tough things. Like, man, I went on a tour once in Europe, and our bus broke down like 4 different times, and we didn't have AC, and we got stuck in areas, and it was a disaster. But like, for the most part, we made fun out of it, and it was a lot easier to get through. I can't imagine if everybody was just, this sucks.
It's toxic, man. It's like brain cancer when that energy starts circulating, because then people that aren't bummed out get bummed out. And I hate that, dude. And as you work with larger artists, the stakes get higher. But in the stakes getting higher, they also have the money to support more infrastructure, so that these like little mistakes that we're talking about, or these little mishaps, are more avoidable. Whereas like on smaller tours, when people are spread a little bit thin, it's just inevitable. When you're on an older bus, like it's going to break down.
Yeah.
It's like when you're touring at the House of Blues circuit, like sometimes the catering is going to suck. Like you don't have your own caterer out. Like it just is what it is.
Yeah, they provide food for everybody who hasn't been on. Usually they provide the food. That's what
and it's not good, but it's free. So like, you just eat it, like whatever.
It's tacos. And so, hey, they give you cookies.
The cookies are solid. And chicken fajitas are decent. You just gotta know what to get. Stay away from the fish.
Don't get that House of Blues fish. You heard it here. Yeah. Man, you've had a lot of really good moments. You said things on here that have really stuck out to me. I like this a lot. Okay, maybe you can speak to this one from Imagine Dragons' perspective, because I think it's really relative to that. But do large acts take a photographer for the whole international tour? Like, do they have the same person for the US, Europe, and Asia, et cetera? Or do they get somebody locally? And this is from Elon on Discord.
I think it just depends on the act and their relationship. Like my friend Josiah, who is Shawn Mendes' tour photographer, literally goes everywhere with Shawn.
Jossie.
Yeah. What a great guy. He actually, I think, lives in Nashville now, and I haven't seen him yet, which reminds me.
He does. He just got a house there.
I'm going to text him right now. I just texted him and said, Daddy. But
we won't go into that one. That Q&A will.
No, but I think it just depends on the artist.
Yeah.
With Dragons, we worked with a lot of different people locally, which is cool. I think it's awesome if an artist wants to collaborate with a lot of people, or if they just have one person that they love how they do it. So
yeah, and I think that the difference, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, because you definitely have more experience than me, but usually artists on that level take their crew with them everywhere. Is that correct? Like the rest of the crew stays the same.
Yeah.
So photographers sometimes fall into a different category because they're creative. They don't make the show go on. So they can get somebody new if they want a different look.
Mm-hmm. But I think there is like a huge consistency aspect that's really important when you have the same person.
Mm-hmm.
But I think having 3 or 4 people that you like to collaborate with will just, keep the content fresh. And it's not saying that these photographers aren't great, but it's just like everyone shoots differently.
It's a very personal skill, right? It's not like you can come out and do somebody else's job. You have to find a person that does what they do.
Totally.
This one's kind of deep.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy from Discord is king of some deep questions, but they want to know if you have any advice on how to deal with clients who completely lost their job, drive, and motivation to do anything with their careers. So I'm assuming that they are referring to like if you're touring with somebody who maybe is less than pleasant to tour with on the artist level. Do you just quit?
No, I don't think you quit. I think you try to find ways to motivate those people and make. I think the thing where some artists get hung up on tours that it just gets so monotonous and they have so much time, where it's like, okay, you wake up at the venue and, you might have some press or promo in the morning, then you sound check, and then you don't have anything for like 4 hours until you play. And then after the show, you have like all this time before you go to bed. So I think I've been really fortunate to work with so many incredible acts that I haven't really dealt with that personally, but I think I have tried to make the touring experience as fun as possible where they're like, like Wayne from Imagine Dragons, like, I would make sure that his family would like, if we were in Zurich and they wanted to go to the zoo, that I would like hit them up in advance and make sure that they had fun things to do. Cause then Wayne comes back from that and him and his kids just like had a blast. And he's like, I'm really stoked to do the show tonight. It's great to be here. And it's so cool that I'm getting to enjoy Switzerland with my family. Or if like Ben and Platts were like, oh dude, we're in, New Orleans and we need a reservation at Cochon. I'm like, okay, I know if I send the guys to go.
I love that place.
So good. They're going to come back and they're going to be psyched. And they're going to be happy to be here because they're like getting to enjoy the best part of being on the road. So I think as a tour manager, you have to make your artists want to be there and have fun and be comfortable. And if you're bumming them out with your energy, that's going to be bad for everybody.
Yeah. So basically you need to read that they're feeling this way because of a reason. They're people. They're just like everybody else. And you can affect that greatly, especially if you're a tour manager. Right? You can help them book things or make their family happy. And in turn, they'll be happy and play a better show.
For sure.
Damn. I want to go on a tour that you are tour manager so I can go do fun activities all day.
I also, this is maybe unrelated, but a manager friend that I love one time said to me, you can never want it more than your artist does. And I thought that was an interesting, and I don't know if that falls into that question, but
yeah,
it reminded me of that. Yeah, I think, by being a positive person, you can motivate people that can sometimes just get tired. Like I know that everyone thinks that the artist has this job that's like, oh, you just go up and play for a couple hours or whatever. Like it is so emotionally draining and there's so much pressure. And like one little thing that goes wrong for them that no one notices is something that could spin them out for hours because they think out of a different side of their brain than someone that's business minded. And yeah, you can't take that lightly.
What do you think? Like as you were saying that, I was trying to give a person who maybe isn't a performer or something in their life, which is a large majority of the human population, what other activity most people do that leaves them as emotionally depleted as an artist who just got off stage?
Probably a manager. We just can't complain about it. No, just kidding.
Thanksgiving dinner.
Like,
you know what I mean?
I think athletes probably experience the same, like high and then it's like, okay, now the game's over.
Yeah.
Now I have to process like that entire, game or whatever that they just.
I mean, like somebody's listening to this, like, Sally and John are sitting at home and they're like, what do you mean the artist is exhausted? I don't understand that at all. But they've never performed. Is there anything you think they might do in their normal life that leaves them feeling that way? And they can think about how they felt in that moment and understand how the artist might feel.
I think it's circumstantial. I mean, like, I think right now,
yeah,
I wouldn't say anxious is how I feel, but there's like an elevated sense of, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this thing and talking to people and someone else is going to watch it. And not that I'm comparing that to like playing a show, but,
well, for you, I mean, it might be it's relative, right? It's still relative.
Yeah. If you have to give a presentation at work,
yeah,
you have to like get a project in by a certain, like, yeah, it's just we all do different things, and it taxes us in different ways.
I think of it as like when you have to do something that you have to focus on consciously for an extended period of time. And if you lose focus, there's great repercussions and you just literally can't do that. Like this podcast right now. Afterwards, I'm going to be exhausted because there's no way I can even take a mental break during this, right? Like I need to be fully engaged with you. And that's not an easy thing. It's not that I don't like it. It's just, it's active, right? And afterwards, like I'm not going to want to talk for an hour or something, I'm just going to want to chill. And I feel like artists have to do that every night and they don't get to say no. And there's a lot more people watching. I got you and Connor. Man, it's hard being an artist. There's aspects of being an artist that are very good.
I mean, like your art is being critiqued. Like think about how many times you've ever just like hopped on New Music Friday and you're like, oh man, that song sucks. Next. Like somebody busted their ass and like spent months writing that song, recording it, coming up with like
all of it,
all the creative direction for it. Like if there's like a music video down to like the visualizer on Spotify, the little canvas thing. And if there's a merch item associated with it and the social media rollout, and to just like have one asshole or not asshole, one person say, oh man, like I don't like this, or this sucks. Or even worse than that, no response, no reaction, nothing. So hard for an artist. Like it's devastating.
and they're emotional beings, man. They're emotional beings.
I have so much, I have such an appreciation and respect for putting art into the world because it's not easy.
Agreed. Yeah, respect art. All right, let's do another one here. And this one, maybe you can speak of from a personal experience, or maybe you're not comfortable doing that. So you can speak of from what you've seen other people do. This is from Noah and their name on Instagram, and their name was Don't Drop My Plants. And I thought that was funny. They had their Instagram was all pictures of plants. So I might hit them up for some help. I got dying plants, but they want to know, what is touring like when you are in a relationship? And let's speak from the crew side. Let's not speak from artist side, because they're totally different experiences.
Totally. I think it just depends. I have some friends that are happily married and have children and have toured for decades. I know other people that have, are on their third marriage and don't talk to their children at all anymore. So I think it's what you make of it, and just having a partner that's understanding. And I think the thing that a lot of people do wrong, and something I did wrong in relationships I was in while touring, was I was just never honest. Not dishonest in the sense of practicing infidelity, but just I would always like downplay how long I'd be out, or try to like spin it in a positive way. But it's like, no, the reality is I'm going to be gone for 3 months, and we need to come up with a plan to make this relationship sustainable. And I'd be like, well, it's not that bad. And like, I'm going to be home for like one day in the middle. And then, you know what I mean? Like trying to justify.
Because that's probably what you do in your head. You know what I mean? Like you almost have to be able to go on those tours. And to come to terms with what it might be like for somebody who's not touring it's hard to realize.
Yeah. I think you just have to, like, if you're going to tour, you have to be with a person that understands the lifestyle. Because if not, it's not going to work. If your partner is going to resent or be jealous, it is not going to work.
Yeah. Trust is a big one.
Trust is huge.
A lot of trust. I mean, you're literally out living somewhere else. It's not easy. And if you've never toured before, you're wondering like, well, Drew's gone for 3 months. He never sees his significant other. Depending on how big your artist is and how you're touring and where you're touring, really plays a big role in how it affects your relationship. Because on one hand, if you're touring in a van, yeah, your significant other probably can't come visit you. But if you're touring in a bus or you have hotels every night, it might be more realistic, to fly somebody out and see them every few weeks. So it really, really depends on what level of touring you're on. But I would say it gets easier to kind of see that person as you get in larger tours. But at the same time, a larger tour might be more time consuming. So it just depends.
I think I wasn't in a relationship when I was doing Imagine Dragons, but like even on a day off, I mean, it wasn't like I was like, oh, like if I had my girlfriend come out, we could go like to the park and then out to dinner or whatever. It's like the ship is out at sea.
You're working.
Their emotion, like it doesn't stop. I used to sleep with my phone under my pillow, dude, with the ringer on loud.
Yeah. Oh, I know that feeling. I had that when I worked for a DJ, and he would have the tendency to like do stuff after we'd go to bed. And it was so crazy. Or like we wouldn't know when we were flying out or something, and I would just have my phone and my camera, everything be ready to go. It's so weird.
It's possible.
Yeah.
You just got to be transparent and honest.
Yeah. So basically, same things that matter normally in a relationship, but to just a higher degree when you're touring. Oh, that's good. That's a good answer. This one is just like, I figure we can break this down because I don't think there's really a question here, but this is from Brandon Smith on Instagram, and they hit me up just wondering what our opinion was of the person who, I don't know if you saw this, just photoshopped their credentials to get into a Kanye show and kind of snuck in. Are you familiar with this or no?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like right off the bat, no brainer. This obviously isn't a good thing to do. If you want to understand why, we can kind of break that down. It's pretty no brainer for both of us, unless I'm missing something here. But do you want to talk about, I mean, this person asked, is he being courageous or is that irresponsible? And I would say the latter.
It's wildly irresponsible. And I'm in a group text with a lot of different tour managers still. And we've all been in this. There's like 30 of us that have been in this chat since the pandemic has started. And I've got some pretty good insight on that situation there. And I think that person that did, it's not as real as he portrayed.
They presented it differently.
Yes. I think you have to earn your right to shoot a show like that. And I would just say, if you have any respect for photography for the live music community, you would never try to pull some shit like that.
Yeah. And not only is it just dishonest, like everybody can see that on face value, even if you're not in the industry, there's repercussions for this. And somebody hit me up or maybe it was the same, somebody else said, maybe it's proof that the system doesn't work for security. And to me, it was more, to me, that would be saying like the system for driving cars doesn't work because somebody could drive off the road if they want to. This person just did the wrong thing in the situation. And there's repercussions that on a safety level. And that's, I think, the biggest concern from touring professionals, right? Like it shows people, I don't know, that this person just got into a concert without getting security checked or presented it that way.
Well, and, when you're operating an event like that, there's so many people that are involved that, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I think those security is like evolving so much, and especially in the COVID climate too, like, in our discussions in this tour manager chat on a lot of like major tours, there's going to be like RFID associated with laminates where backstage checkpoints, you're going to have to scan in and scan out. And then if there is an incident, you're going to be able to, like, as the, head of security on this tour, see like which laminates were scanned in and out at which points, at which times. Like, it's going to get that expansive. And back to the social media aspect of that, now like the artist I manage, his band and crew, like we have an employment agreement that specifically discusses what our expectations are, because like back to what we were discussing earlier, you're a representation of the artist. So by you posting a photo of your credential or what hotel you're staying at, it's like you could be seriously jeopardizing the safety of the entire operation, because there's some people that become obsessed with these artists or wanting access, or, maybe they have plans to do something terrible. And if they've gained a photo of the credential and can get backstage, it may have nothing to do with your show, but wanting to hurt like a large room of people. It's something that can't be taken lightly, and something that, as a TM was always like the most important thing is everyone on the tour safe. That's more important than anything. Number one thing. And so like when you see this like fake photographer, I won't even call him a photographer. You see this hack guy try to pull that. It's like, and then promoting that and like getting kids excited to try to do that. It's like, you got to earn that spot to photograph one of the greatest artists in the world. Man, you put a lot of people in jeopardy. I don't know how real or it was or wasn't, but
yeah. And when Drew's saying he doesn't know how real it was or wasn't, we're basically saying like the way this person said it happened online might not be the actual way that they did it. So they say they broke into something, but really they were actually credentialed, or the other way. We don't know what's true, but correct me if I'm wrong. That's what you're saying, right? Yeah. Anyway, don't like that story kind of goes against the whole concept of this podcast, which is, don't shit on the bus. Don't be an asshole. Just because you can do something, or you figured out a way to do something, doesn't mean you have to do it. If you're operating from a good value and a good place, like this should never be even on the spectrum of things you consider doing. And especially in the world where we have things like, and I'm going to say this venue name wrong, but Bataclan, is that correct? Yeah. When we have things like the shootings going on, or, in Florida, you're putting people in positions where they're able to do these things easier, and people take advantage of those opportunities. So don't do that.
1,000%.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I know that wasn't the lightest note to end on, but I do have actually I have a better note to end on. We ask everybody who comes on this podcast, do they wear shower shoes on tour? So do you wear shower shoes on tour, Drew?
No, because I wear Crocs.
Yeah, with style.
So I started wearing Crocs before the Croc craze, and I'm not trying.
Okay, you're a hipster. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not trying to like one up everyone that's recently got into Crocs, but it's perfect. You wake up in your bunk. You don't want to be like walking around barefoot on the carpet. So you put your Crocs on. You can walk into the venue. You can take a shower in them. You can dry them out. You can put them back on at the end of the night to walk onto the bus. It's the perfect tour footwear.
They're like They're like slippers, but Crocs.
The holes are so your swag can breathe out.
Oh yeah, you gotta let the swag. You gotta let that swag ventilate.
I actually bought my fiance's sister a pair for her birthday because she tortures me so much for wearing them. But no, they are literally the best shoes, and I would never shower without something on my feet in a venue ever.
Hashtag sponsored. I don't have Crocs, but I have these things, which are kind of similar.
Oh, those are cool. Yeah, I mean, same idea. Yeah. You could shower in those for sure.
I don't like socks.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's a better note. Dude, thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me, dude. It was great to see you. And Connor, it was nice to meet you, man.